All right. And my printer's not keeping up with me today, so welcome everyone to our Finance Committee meeting. And so I don't have the agenda in front of me.
It's
Well, I
just
guess I can.
the minutes for the 3rd and the 17th, and then just
Okay.
budget.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make a motion for both of those.
Okay. I get a second on that, Peg?
Sure,
I
second.
mean Judy, I'm sorry. Oh wait, Judy's not here yet.
I'll second if you want me to.
Okay, well Judy will be in here. I just realized she's not here. I know she didn't forget. We talked about it earlier. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. All right. So why don't we go ahead?
If you want, I could start. Wait, one more coming in. Kelly Holt.
Okay. I'm gonna quick text her just to make sure she's coming.
Another one. She's coming in now.
Okay. Okay. Hi, Judy. All right, we already approved the minutes, so we just wanted to check with you to make sure you were getting in here.
I have read the minutes. I needed a break to
Okay.
the facilities between meetings. I'm sorry.
Facilities and Finance. I'm kidding. Okay.
But
Well,
yes, I read the minutes. They were good.
Okay. I will turn it over to Sandy then, and Dan, and whoever else needs to get in on this and see where we're at with our budget.
Okay. So I'm going to share my screen in a minute. There's a couple documents that I provided to you earlier today. Let's see. And I'm at not the beginning. So are you seeing my PowerPoint?
Not yet.
Okay, that's what I thought. Hold on. Share screen.
Now we're getting some, there we go.
Okay. Let's see. So, current slide. All right. You were probably, okay.
Perfect.
All right, so you're seeing the larger one.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. So I have a budget update. I know I sent something out this morning with information regarding changes to the budget due to two things: some special ed costs and ESSER 2 additional expenditures that need to be included for next year's budget. And we will go over those. The first slide is just basically where we are in the timeline. It was advertised in the TNC, and our adoption is scheduled for Thursday night. The deadline for adoption, of course, is 6:30. There is no state budget yet. We're still waiting to find out what's going to happen with subsidies, but there's really been nothing except some discussion on fair funding and 733, which does not have a positive effect on the school district. So we'll see what happens with the budget. Moving forward, expenditure adjustments that I made, and I will share this and then some more detail in another document, which I sent out to you before. But so there were some changes in the regular programs. This had to do with technology and was adjustment to an item that was less in cost than originally projected. And then special education out of district tuition need to be increased. We have what we call 40-10 students. So there are students placed in out of district due to need. And it's a shared 60-40 split. 40% is paid by the district. It comes off of our subsidy, usually at the end of June. So we were able to identify those students that would affect the subsidy changes for deduction for next year. So we need to increase the budget by $241,000. And we'll go over a little bit more of a breakdown on that later. The big item is technology for ESSER 2. There was a lot of items, and Jim Roth is on our call also, or on our committee meeting also. And so these items were not in the budget that was presented to you, but they are a need in technology, and we have funding, federal funding. If you remember, the federal funding is encouraged to use it for one-time expenditures. Obviously, technology isn't always one time, but it's one time for a number of years until replacements are needed. So it is a good way to spend some of your federal dollars that are coming from COVID. So since they were not included in next year's expenses, we need to include them. You will see that I included additional revenue from ESSER 2 in the budget to help offset some of it, but I already had some ESSER 2 funds allocated as revenue in the budget already prior to today's presentation. And then technology, there's additional costs of other, and I'll go through that also. And then our guidance counselors for contracted counselors. So ESSER, as you know, ESSER 3 is also a grant that we need to apply for, which obviously we'll receive. And so there's planning that's in place or going to be in place for how to use those funds. I know we talked about all our funds at the May 3rd meeting. We went through all the COVID grants. So this grant, the contracted counselors would like, Dr. Farina would like to continue with those as she finds there is a need and it could be supported by those federal funds, those one-time funds. The good thing about contracted services is, you have them as long as you need them, but they're not an ongoing expense and is a good way to spend the needed dollars for this is by using your ESSER funds. So unfortunately, the bad news is all of these result in an increase in the budget since the board workshop. If you remember, I decreased some dollars at the board workshop, and now I'm increasing it from that level to a little over $1 million for these items. Again, a lot of it will be supported by the ESSER funds, but not entirely. Expenditure summary, this changes our summary that we had earlier and that we approved at the May meeting. It shows that the increase in each area. And then here's the graphic showing obviously instruction is going to be your largest segment, and then support services. I almost look at those together, that's a combined. And then of course, there are the operation of non-instructional, which as I said, is your student activities, and other financing being your debt service and the amount that's in my capital reserve or capital. So the revenue adjustment that I made to help support the increase that you saw on the prior slide was the state subsidy and special ed. Originally, when I budgeted the state subsidy and special ed, I did not budget all of the increase that's proposed. I usually don't like to do that until the budget is passed. The special ed is based on numbers that are submitted by us. So depending on the class of the student, the grouping of the student and where they fall and how that subsidy is calculated. So I did increase the state subsidy to the amount that's proposed in the state budget. As far as federal subsidy, ESSER 2, I already have $500,000 listed as revenue based on all the expenses that we've shown earlier in May. And then currently, with items that we know will come in next year, will not be coming in this year. So I increased that to receiving $1 million in the ESSER 2 funds. The grant itself is just like $1.1 million. So most of those will be received in next year's budget, and the expenses, most of those will be expended in next year. So the increase in the budget since the board workshop is $667,000. Increase in additional fund balance needed is $423,988. Revenue sources, as you can see, obviously local is carrying most of that need, and this is at the 2% level. At 2% level, we're still looking at a fund balance need of 3.9. 3.9 is excessive. It's higher than we've had in the past. But that is based on the board's approval in May, but you also didn't have the level of expenditures that you're seeing now at that time, so that it is higher. The general fund revenue, this is graphically showing the local support being 62.9, but actually you have to add the fund balance to that because that's also local support. That's your fund balance. So you're looking at over 68% of the budget being funded by, the tax collectors, taxpayers, excuse me. This is if we do millage increase of 0, 1, 2, 3, or the max at 3.7. Even if you go to the max at 3.7, the fund balance needs to support this budget is $3.2 million. You have to keep in mind when you're looking at what level of increase to the millage that we added a program and we extended another program in the district. They are ongoing expenses, full day kindergarten, and then of course our autistic classes, will be extended into another grade level. So those are needed. They're ongoing expenses and we need to support them. We will not be getting additional funding like some of the districts, as they talked about the fair funding formula. I think there was an article yesterday in the Pottstown Mercury, very lengthy article describing that those dollars. That's zero for Upper Perk. We do not qualify for additional dollars under the fair funding formula. Actually, if they were to implement that for all subsidies, it would be a negative impact on the district. If the House bill or Senate Bill 733 passes, that'll be another decrease. If that occurs, then it'll be deductions for non-public, and there's some other criteria for that, but that also would have a negative effect on our subsidy. So I can't say to you, well, maybe we'll receive more unless something drastically changes at the state. I would say to you, we will not receive additional basic ed funding. If we even receive the amount I did not budget, there was a small increase in the February proposal from the governor, but based on what's occurring currently and looking to move the funds into the fair funding formula, then we would not receive any additional. The hope is that they'll continue, and I believe they will. I'm almost positive they will, and hold harmless. Hold harmless means we won't receive anything less than we did before. Now, if you remember last year, COVID time, everyone was guaranteed what they received the prior year. So we received the same funding level for basic education as we did the prior year. There was no real increase. So again, we were in the COVID time period. Our expenditures were less. So it was understandable why the state decided that there was no additional funding for basic education. So here is, we talked about, I don't have the additional ones listed that are on the prior page, but as you can see, if we went 0 is 4.7, 1% is 4.3, and 2% is 3.9. Again, that's a very significant draw from your fund balance, higher than we've ever looked at doing before. The 2%, the additional tax generated, about covers your kindergarten, full day K, and the expansion of the autistic, which are again ongoing expenditures. It doesn't account for all the other expenses that are occurring. Now this is a different year. We do have COVID funds. We will have ESSER 3, which can be spent up until 2024. It has to carefully be planned out, and remember, it is one-time dollars. There is no once it's gone, so you don't want to use it to support ongoing expenditures. And then final budget adoption. But I would like to share some other documents with you. If there's any, I don't wonder if there's any questions on the PowerPoint itself, or we can come back to it also.
I can't see everybody, but I'm going to say just go ahead. So far, so good.
All right, thank you. Okay. Interesting. It's great having multiple screens. It's just finding where they are, right?
Yep.
For some reason I have this document up like 3 times now. It's crazy. Love it. All right. This is the one.
Yep, that's the same. Yeah, there we go.
I know it's. This document does not want to. Apologize here, excuse me for a minute.
Okay.
Here we go. No, that's not the one I clicked on. Interesting. All right, I'm having technical difficulties here. No. Dr. Farid, I'm having trouble.
Are you putting up one of the ones you emailed us today? Do you want me to email it back to you?
No, I have it right in front of me and open on one of my screens. It's just for some reason when I go to click on it, it won't, it's
Doesn't
not
work?
showing up in the share. I mean, I see it on the document. It says,
So
what am I doing wrong?
when you're out of unshare, like go to share, and is it a little icon on your screen?
Yeah, I mean, I see it. I can see it under share screen.
So click it when we can't see it. Click it right now.
I did, but it's not, but you're looking at the one I
And it-
need to get rid of.
So close
So-
it.
I know, let me close something. See if-
Don't make it an option.
I know, it's weird. Hold on, let me get rid of some of this.
What are you trying to show?
Yeah, I don't want that. All right. Let's go out of here, sorry. There we go. It's gotta do it now. It's the only thing left. No, it won't, hold on.
Oh, what a bugger.
I cannot, hold on, I'm gonna move it over to this screen. Now, let's see. I never had this trouble
If you
before.
email the doc, if you email the doc to one of us or tell us
we can-
which one, we can.
I'm determined to get this to work. Hold on.
Get it?
Okay, now. Share screen. All right. I think I got it. Are you seeing budget adjustments for June 2021?
Yep.
Yes.
Yay, here we go. I had to close out all the PowerPoint stuff. All right, so I wanted to give you a further breakdown of the budget adjustments that I showed on the PowerPoint. So at the May 13th board meeting, board approval is for 70,431,000. And then in May 27th workshop, we found some reductions in charter school because we had some students had said they were coming back to the district, so we were able to reduce some of our charter school costs. Our school security guard cost, the RFP came in, it's actually on the agenda for tomorrow evening, and we were able to reduce the cost we had in the budget by $62,000, reflecting a savings, and which brought our total down to 7186. But since the 27th meeting, we had to adjust for some special ed cost tuition, which came out to 241,000, but here you can see the breakdown in the areas of the special ed areas. And then that amount, it has to be supported basically by fund balance. And then the ESSER 2 funds, we have some additions there. And again, if you want anything specific about these, Jim is here and can answer any questions as far as what they are and their need, and of course, how we're planning on next year. And then there's the guidance services to continue with the contracted counselors. But again, that would be coming out of the ESSER funds. That will come out of the ESSER 3 funds. These will be out of the ESSER 2. And then what I did is added ESSER 2 additions. That's the additional costs. And then as I showed you earlier on the revenue side, I added special education to what is proposed in the state budget. And then another addition of ESSER funds is in the total revenue to help at least bring down the additional need for fund balance to bring it to a little bit lower level. So I open it up to any questions. I know I sent some other documents that you've seen before. It's basically a breakdown of all our revenue and then the calculation of our taxes.
Go ahead, Keith. I hear you. I see you.
Okay. For Jim, I guess questions on, you're doing a lot of replacement, capital tech equipment replacement on laptops, projectors. Is that like a good percentage of the laptops and projectors that are being replaced? Any idea? You can give me a percentage of what's being replaced?
Yeah, so
10%, 20?
Mr. McCarrick, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so the laptops is really just the ninth grade, the incoming ninth grade, which would traditionally have been a lease. This is a direct buy. We place them on order for supply. We don't expect to see them till even September now, which is kind of a side note for you, but that is ninth grade laptops that'll be used over 4 years. The projectors is all of elementary, the 4, 5, Hereford and Marlboro, which are in dire need of new projectors to replace their smart boards. And Dr. Farina, probably, you might know better. The age when I check, I see 12 to 15 years. Those projectors are. And then I lost the list. Is it coming back, Sandy? Sorry.
There you go.
And then the 3 other items, Mr. McCarrick, are related to some of our core upgrades and elementary again. So I'll start with the wireless. The wireless is Meraki Wireless, which is end of life in the 2 elementary
Yeah, Jim,
schools.
that was good enough. You don't have to go
Okay.
through all the details.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, as broad spectrum overall. If we're doing, laptops for ninth grade is going to last us for 4 years, that's great.
Yep.
And
Yep.
replacement of the 1 through 5 grades, that's great too. So.
Yep, and projectors, I expect 10 to 15 years out of those. 10 is what we bank on. And then I would caution you, there is, Mrs. Castle, I'm not sure where it lays, but there is also a core storage and compute portion of our core infrastructure that needs to be upgraded. And I believe that may be still under capital. Sandy, is that right?
We'll have to check on that, to be honest.
That's
a big piece. That's about 200,000.
Okay. And then
And that's end of life. And I know you know that world, Mr. McCarrick, you know
And
that
the
world.
past year and a half going into the next year to 2 years is going to be tough on everything. I mean, today we didn't even have school. I'm working from home and internet is terrible. So
Yeah.
everybody's going to run into the core upgrades. So that's a common problem.
Sure.
But that's great. That's all I needed to know as far as the
Very good.
technology.
Great.
The,
Thank you.
Guidance services. How many contracted counselors do we have with that?
So we were able to utilize the Ready to Learn grant for 3 counselors this year. That grant's being used for full day kindergarten, starting next year and probably indefinitely, which left us down 3 counselors.
Those were extra counselors, right, that we brought in to
They
deal
were.
with some of the social and emotional issues with regards to COVID, correct?
Well, so yeah, the opportunity arose because we didn't offer full day K because of COVID. We utilized it for that fund because there's a significant need in that area. COVID made the money available. The need existed based on our numbers and our student acuity.
Okay, so will that be a budget item that will go on through the years, or are we anticipating not needing them at some future date?
So, obviously with limited local funds, our operating funds, it was in, we recommended it for our budget through Ready to Learn again, but we used it for kindergarten. I don't ever see the student need going away. I think the grant opportunities go away. Obviously I will continue to work to find grants that could continue to fund those positions. ESSER 3 was one that when it's available, I certainly, want to capitalize on its availability because our kids.
That'll only take us to 2024 because ESSER 3s need to be used by then.
Correct.
So then
After that,
we need to absorb this into our regular budget.
I don't know if we are ever available that we're able to absorb it in our regular budget, it's significant. And because it would be our staff, it would even be more. And their reoccurring costs. I, of course, will continue to make recommendations to add staff, but you know, it's difficult given the fiscal constraints that we have. You know, I don't want to lie about that.
Most likely it is a recurring cost, and we're going to have to figure out a way to fund it as we go forward, along with everything else that we do.
And the beautiful thing is there are grants available in the area of mental health. It's just continuing to write. You know, we wrote one a couple years ago. It was $500,000 and they gave it to the 12 richest school districts in Pennsylvania. So, you know, that one hurt, but they're out there and we'll write. And if we believe that we can, you know, put it in our operating budget knowing that it's a recurring cost, I certainly will advocate for it.
And one last question. So the contracted counselors, with the addition of them, does that bring our total number of school counselors to?
So we have 3 elementary counselors, 1 student assistance counselor. So we have 4 at the elementary. We have 2 school counselors and a student assistance counselor at the middle school. So that's 7. Then we have 3 high school counselors and 1 student assistance counselor at the high school, and that's 11. So
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I can't see everybody, so if somebody else has a question, just pipe up.
I did have one other question for Jim. So a few years ago, I know that we had put a lot of this hardware, because they go obsolete so easily, on lease schedules. And I noticed you said that the 183, this is for a purchase. I'm just curious as to the reason why we switched from a lease to a purchase. I'm sure you have a good reason, so I'm wondering, you know,
We started to make that switch last year. I did an analysis of the lease versus purchase value. As it turned out, in the end of those leases, the way those leases were structured, they were buyout leases, fair market value buyout leases. And by the time we collected all the laptops or the Chromebooks, paid for the ones that were totally destroyed or broken, returned them, we were at pretty close to a buyout cost. So we've done 2 things now. We've restructured some leases as dollar buyout. So we have the option to buy them out for $1 at the end. And we've taken the opportunity where possible to buy, especially in a situation as the hardware is improving. These, for example, we're going to buy out similar machines from 12th grade this year, or recommend that. It's in the budget to do that and buy those lease machines out that are 4 years old and be able to utilize them for at least 1 more year. Chromebooks, possibly, that were being used for 3 years can be used for 5 to possibly 6 years. So when we looked at it from that standpoint, as the equipment has gotten a little bit more rugged and it's holding up better, we've been in a situation where we can do that. So when we did the lease to buy ROI, it turned out very positive on the buy side in this case. Does that make sense?
It does. It makes complete sense. So thank you for doing that analysis, because, you know, if we can save money, I guess that also gives you the opportunity to use some for like spare parts and things like that, I'm assuming also, right?
Right. And situations like this year, for example, the buyout of the 12th grade laptops is going to be very, very important to us, because the 9th grade laptops probably won't arrive till the end of September. Right. So we have those opportunities. We have the opportunities to put devices in some hands of staff members like paraprofessionals and other counselors that maybe didn't have access to a device. So we've tried to make it a positive spin, no matter how we can see it. And we also have the opportunity to sell some of the hardware if it's still in good use, and sell that off to an aftermarket if possible. So we haven't gone there yet, but we're going to evaluate that after we get our new machines this year.
Thank you.
I have one quick question for you too.
Mhm.
So I remember right before you were here, I remember Brian Rosinski. I swear, and I guess Judy's thinking the same thing. I swear he put us on an actual schedule of replacement. And I can't picture that right now, but I remember spreadsheets and
Yes.
so we're changing that because this is better.
Yeah.
I'm
he
agreeing
did.
with you. I'm just saying, yeah.
He did, and we're starting the process this summer to rework that refresh plan. We call that an end of life and refresh plan. Certain things like the projectors, I wouldn't say it was wrong, but they weren't really aggressive enough. As Dr. Farina knows, maybe 10 to 15 projectors a year, we never would have caught up. So he had a lot of constraints with him financially, where he had to make some decisions like that. One of the things that was on that refresh plan is the core compute and storage and network that I spoke about earlier. And we made the decision together with the board and the finance committee and everybody last year to forgo that one extra year. That was actually due last year, as you may recall. And we eked out one more year out of that hardware. Now the maintenance costs are getting very, they're going up exponentially. They're getting very expensive where it's not in our best interest. And it's going to be harder to get parts in that arena as well. So we're going to be reworking that and present that back to you as well. It's something that Dr. Farina and I have talked about that's as important as an operational 5-year plan, for example. So what does the next 5 to 10 years look like in refresh cycle? These opportunities that you see on Mrs. Castle's list are opportunities to escalate and make up some time. Be honest with you, on some things that maybe could have or should have happened in the past, and there just wasn't the financial opportunity to do that. Now we're up against it with wireless and projectors that are failing and those kind of things. Okay.
No, that's just fine. So I'll just one more question. I'm really not beating up on you, I promise.
No, that's
I'm
fine.
just
That's
asking the
good.
questions.
More the merrier.
So on the projectors, so I know when we did, I'm thinking when we did the renovations on 4-5 last year, we added a whole bunch of stuff. And I can just picture the old home ec area, and that didn't work very well. And so if we're in for 192,000 this year on projectors, is there another number next year, or is this pretty much cover us for a while? That's my basic question.
So there's two components to it. I'm going to answer it a little sideways, and I don't mean to do
That's
that,
fine.
but there's two components. This is the physical hardware.
Right.
There's another component that Mrs. Castle has laid in, and you see it down lower on the projector installation, right?
Yes.
But to answer your question point, this will take care of us from a projector standpoint for that 10-year window that we're looking at, because
Okay.
we've in that realm, maybe 8 to 10 years, because we did the middle school when the middle school was built.
Right.
We just completed the high school this year.
Okay.
So they got all short throw projectors and new whiteboards. And now we're going into the 4-5 where they have mostly brand new whiteboards, but
Right.
they were using the older, you can't buy a bulb for this projector anymore. So they'll get new projectors, and then Hereford and Marlboro will get the whole set. They'll get a new whiteboard and a new projector and the installation and so forth. So long answer to a short question is projectors. This should set us on that refresh plan to start out at about 8 years.
Okay. All right. Yeah,
With
that
probably
sounds-
something like the middle school,
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. That was exactly the answer I thought you were going to give me. I just made it. Okay. Thank you.
Good.
All right. Anyone else have any questions? Again, I can't see everybody. I can only see 4 people. So pop in if you have a question. Now's a good time. All right. I'm not seeing any questions. Bradley, do you have any questions? I see you on there. Nope. All right. Okay. Let's see. So no questions on those presentations. Do you have anything else, Sandy, that you're going to show us? I don't want to cut you off.
No, not really. I mean, I have, items that I sent you, but it's really just summaries of what we've already gone over as far as revenues, and then taxes. I guess the real question is, what happens Thursday night? The fund balance need is great. There's only two choices: raise taxes or cut expenditures, or that's about it. So it'll be a really decision of the board. I would, recommend that we have some tax increase to support some of those expenses because, going over $3 million is excessive in use of fund balance. Especially we're looking at 3.9 at the 2% level. But if I can offer, if there's anything else anyone would need, please let me know before Thursday, today, anytime, in order to help you make a decision of how we need to move forward.
All right, well, I have, oh, go ahead, Judy. Or Matt.
I'm going to ask the question I ask every single month at this meeting. How much money do we have in our fund balance that is not already allocated, that is free to be used for this expense?
You have approximately, that's not already committed, about $9 million.
Do you anticipate taking any money from there to balance the books at the end of the month, at the end of the year here?
So out of the total of fund balance that we will have at the end of the year, I suspect we will take some of it, but that's only because we made a transfer of $5 million into capital. Because it wasn't a year that we spent that we obviously used all of the expenditures because like transportation was down and some other areas were lower, but the transfer, which was vastly needed to support the Giza project, and it was a great addition to our capital funds, shows up as an expenditure. So therefore, when you look at next year in total, you will see that some of the fund balance will decrease from the prior year because of the transfer. So you still have, but you have some committed dollars that you can uncommit at some point for utilization. But it's just a large amount that we have listed for the fund balance. That's for usage. And I think you're going to use some of it. Now, this is where it gets really difficult. You have ESSER funds that will come into play. We didn't budget yet for ESSER 3 because that yet has to be planned out. Actually, a little bit of that because actually the $240,000 for the counselors will be out of the ESSER 3 funds. Those funds are a little $2.3 million. You have to 2024, but they're one-time funds. So they have to be carefully planned on how they're being spent. So, some of the districts or business administrators are worried about having more fund balance at the end of this year, only because of the COVID dollars that came in, but it's one-time dollars. So once they're used, they're gone. So that's where I caution everyone to be careful as we move forward. But having a tax increase to me is essential in the sense of because you can't recover those dollars in the future because you're limited by Act 1. So each year, Act 1 tells you can't exceed the amount that you're allowed to raise taxes. So if you don't do, and like I said, this year, the amount that we looked at would just support the full day K and the autistic program as additional programs that are continuous and ongoing. But probably a long answer to your question. Sorry.
So I have a question then to piggyback off of that. So the 9 million uncommitted is what's in committed, including our Giza project?
No.
Okay, so none of it's included?
None of the Giza projects is included, but I would, if it's possible, I would recommend taking some of your fund balance and transferring it into capital. I mean, you can do that. I mean, I know you need it to support the budget, but you can use some of the, think about using some of the committed funds, changing that and making a transfer to capital. You have some opportunities. You need to support that project. The other thing is, I know as Doug had mentioned, we were looking at what's the next stage. Obviously right now, the Giza, the amount, the cost, unless there's any additions that we have some other areas that we have to look at. But the next phase can be, some of that can be used out of the ESSER 3 funds. Now, that's a good use of federal dollars that are one time that can help support the future GIZA items that we need to take care of, which will be decided later. Now you have till 2024 to utilize those funds, but we have several ways that we can look at using them without impacting and having them as one-time expenses.
And part of that conversation between Doug and I is what was deferred from the Giza project and what is the value of those deferrals in terms of cost. So that dialogue is happening as well in terms of ESSER 3.
Go ahead, Judy.
I'm sorry, I just want some clarification there because I got a little confused and you're gonna have to forgive me because I'm not real up on the whole GISA thing. We transferred $5 million into our capital fund for GISA, correct?
Correct.
All right, so I thought that fund, I thought we had enough money in capital to do our phase 1 of GISA. Is that not the case?
That is correct. You have enough money in capital and you'll be reducing your capital to about 3 million. And then of course, there's a list of items that we've come up with that we'd like to take additional items out of capital, and that's not even expanding the GIZA. We talked about like the softball commitment, to improve the field and the drainage and those items. So you have other capital items in the wings. I mean, that's a decision you have to make, how to spend those funds, but it does take it down to 3.2.
Okay, but it is, phase 1 is fully funded right now.
Yes,
Okay, and by doing that, that leaves us with 9 million in our fund balance.
9 million uncommitted in the fund balance, correct.
Okay, but we have a total of
About 18 million.
18. The 5 million, is that in that 18 or?
No.
No, okay. I think I understand it now. I kept thinking that the 5 million was part of, I thought it was just like, I got it now. Okay,
Okay.
I was confused.
Okay, go ahead.
To Judy's point and to Sandy, what you just said and all that, I would just feel a whole lot better if we had some kind of strategic plan relative to facilities.
We're working on it.
I just feel like we're shooting from the hip all the time. Oh, we'll fix
Working
this,
on it.
we'll fix that. I mean, geez.
Well, remember, we're gonna have a, oh my gosh, my brain
Feasibility
is,
study.
thank you. All I could think of was facility study, and I know that's not what it's called. So we are working on a feasibility study, and that's gonna really help because the last one we had pretty much identified we need to make a new middle school. So, I mean, I feel after reading the last 2 and the addendum to one of them, that, yeah, it didn't really identify anything we had to do. So in reality, so this time it's going to be real.
It's
And
really,
And we got to stick to it.
yeah,
yeah,
it's important
exactly.
you pick somebody that, when you're doing the feasibility study, you know what direction you're looking at and what you want included. There's a lot of data that goes into it, as Melanie knows from the past. It's planning and structure and instructional. The curriculum is a big part of the feasibility study. How you're going to deliver your curriculum, what areas need to be improved. And I know Dr. Farina is going to tell me the high school needs work.
Yes.
And that's, I think, probably your next focus, because you have a new middle school, beautiful middle school. You have spent money on the 4-5 building. Let's develop that into the elementary building that it is. The elementaries are going to be in good shape. So your next target is, or I should say, probably the next need is the high school. But that'll be delivered, and all that has to be taken into consideration when you do that feasibility study. The instructional component is very important. Besides, not only the delivery, but the kids' access to all the instructional areas. So that'll be key, and it's be very important, and to picking the right vendor to perform that feasibility study will be a key.
Yep.
And on another topic, Sandy, I would love to see our per pupil cost. And I know how wonky it was this year with the pandemic, but I just really would like that statistic at some point,
Okay.
maybe by Thursday.
Okay.
Let Dan work on it.
No pressure. Yeah, I just to touch on that, on back to the facility. Yeah, I think right now we're fixing the things, the chiller and the things that are dead and that we have to fix because you can't run a school with no air conditioning and no heating. So we're getting there. There was a lot to do. Doug's only been here for 2 years, just barely 2 years. And great strides have been made. So hang in. I know there's a lot to do.
I mean, that's kudos to the board too for putting funding to be able to do that. I mean, because that's the key. Funding has to be provided to support those endeavors. So recognizing the need, putting the funding, and then we can move forward. And carefully selected vendors to do that, like ICS and Provident. I think you're doing a great job with the Giza.
Yep.
If you remember, it was a long process to get to that point. We did that demonstration. Those interviews. Remember?
Oh
seemed
my
like
gosh,
years
a year and a half ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was a long time ago.
Yeah, that's a long time ago.
Strategically doing it the right way and then supporting it is the key.
Can we decrease the amount of money we need to take out of capital by using some ESSER 3 funds for the work at the high school? Because air ventilation is a qualifying use for ESSER funds, improving air quality and ventilation. Could we decrease the amount of money we need to take from capital by using some ESSER funds for that?
You are correct. And Doug and I, we've talked about it. We have to make sure we meet all the federal guidelines in the work that's being done. And actually, Doug and I participated in a webinar that ICS did, that they had that experience, and we use ICS as far as making sure all the proper documentation is used when bids are achieved with the vendor. So we just have to make sure all your documents are properly completed because it's federal dollars. So there's a lot of other restrictions, but we have talked about that. And if that's something you want to pursue, that's something we can do.
And Doug and I spoke with Michael Lang, and they're pulling together a list of ECMs that are ESSER eligible. And so they'll identify the cost and if the procurement guidelines, the UGG guidelines have been met. And so they're coding that for us, and because they were involved in that for our review.
Great. That's great. I'm glad to hear that because I know I thought about that before, and I mean, I think I might have even said it, but good. Judy, go ahead. Oh, okay. I thought you raised your hand.
No, that was an itch.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's okay. All right. Anyone else have any questions? Dana, anything?
Could you run it by me just one more time? We have an $18 million fund balance. How's it go down to 9? And if we're at 9 and we take 4 million out, we're going to be at 5, right?
True. The reason we have committed fund balance that the board has committed, one to support the current year budget, the other is for retirement and for some debt service. So that's why I said you can look at adjusting those commitments, but that is currently committed. It's part of our financial report. So that takes like 9 million and moves that aside, just as listed as committed, which you can uncommit if that's the desire. And then you have 9 million that's uncommitted, approximately, these are approximate numbers, that would be used to support what we're looking at for the budget moving forward. But remember, fund balance is one-time dollars. If you use it for ongoing expenditures, you're gonna use that up in no time. Within 3 years, you'll have nothing. So at least as far as unreserved fund balance. But there's some things in place strategically. You can make some changes, but you also have to recognize that you're going to have to support these expenditures moving forward. That's why I would say to you, I think it's important that there is some level of a tax increase so you don't lose those funds forever, because that's what would occur if you don't.
Good, Dana?
Got it.
Okay, thanks. All right, anyone else? Keith? Oh, I
Yeah.
see. Keith.
Sandy, could we just get a breakdown for Thursday of what is committed, what the balances are committed to and uncommitted for?
Sure.
Just so we have those numbers.
You'll
we
have
can
it
see them
tomorrow.
Black and white.
Yep,
Thank
no problem.
Because I know other members are going to ask the same question on Thursday.
Yep, told them all to come multiple times.
Lead a horse to water.
Yep, I know. All right, anyone else? No,
Maybe we want to also stress why it's important not to drop our fund balance, our uncommitted fund balance down to 5. You know, what is that uncommitted fund balance doing for us besides giving us an umbrella, a protection against unforeseen expenses?
You are correct. I mean, he basically laid it out. It is for unforeseen expenses and to support to a smaller level moving forward, you know, a need. It's just, you just don't want to wipe it out in 2 or 3 years and then have nothing. And then you have a problem and you'll be looking at cutting programs, which is not something we want to look at. Because unfortunately, Act 1 is going to restrict whatever tax increases you may need in the future. We're not looking at any additional subsidies moving forward, at least in basic education, if the fair funding formula goes into effect, or if 733 passes, that'll be, you know, a negative effect on the district. So I wish I knew what the state was doing budgetarily, but you know, we won't know that before our budget is passed.
Sandy, remind me, back when index for next year, the next year comes out the end of June?
Well, I'll tell you a little story. So usually the person there emails a few of us because they know we want it right away as soon as possible. Technically, it's supposed to be out by June 16th, but there's a 3-member board that has to approve it. And when she sent me the email about 3 weeks ago, she said, unfortunately, two of them had passed away.
Oh, no.
And they need a majority, and they haven't appointed individuals to the commission. So she said she didn't know when it would be approved. She was hoping that we'd still meet the deadline. In fact, it's funny you asked because I was going to email her today to see if any progress has been made. I think I would, you know, for my sake, I would love to know if there will be a step change or not. And of course, it's either has to be 0 or help us. I don't want it to go the other direction. It has not done that.
It's not going to go the other direction.
But I still would need to know because that definitely would have an effect on us moving forward.
Yep. Yeah, another year of 0 and
Well, that's why we have to take the opportunity with what's allowed under the Act 1.
Actually, and can I chime in on a point that Dana made of, you know, not using down so much fund balance? You know, the other thing that it represents is the financial footing of the district. So as we move forward, and if we, you know, if we're going out for another bond offering, that financial footing and what it looks like for the district's financial strength, the fund balance does factor into where the district falls, you know, on that stability. So that does factor in when it comes to bond rating down the road.
thanks, Dan. Anyone else? So does the committee want to make a recommendation to the full board? What do you two want to do? Don't all jump at once.
I think we should allow each board member to make their own decision. I really do.
Okay.
That's pretty much what I was going to say. I mean, I've said what my preference is all along. I think everybody else needs to take a look at the information and decide at the same.
It'd be
Okay.
great if they would look at all the information that Sandy has provided over the last 5 months, and you know,
Would have been nice if they were all here tonight.
right, you know, so they could ask questions. But I do think that ultimately, this is one area where people are going to have to make their own call, because this is a difficult one.
Okay.
And I don't think we should make a recommendation. I think we should say that, you know, we've exhausted looking at, you know, the information, and here it is. And, you know, choose wisely.
Yes. Dana, Peg, we thank you for coming out and listening to these meetings repeatedly with us. That's
Definitely.
greatly appreciated. But, you know, we do need to follow our own convictions and what we think the direction of the district is going to be and how we can best get there going along there.
Okay. All right. Sorry, Sandy. I can't give you a number. Sorry.
Sorry.
Okay.
Just concerned. I said your choice is either raise taxes or reduce the budget. And I don't know what that should be. So.
All righty. Anyone else have anything else? I think I'll hold off touching. I wanted to touch on the SB 733. I did have a talk with Bob Mensch about that. And he said that they're, you know, between SB1 and SB 73, SB1 creates more accountability and doesn't increase costs. And he said SB 733 is a state-funded opportunity scholarship plan for needy kids. And the only thing that would happen is the industry, which would be like PSEA, PASBO, would cede some control. That was his take on it. And let's see.
But it would be negative impact on the district because there'd be deductions from our subsidy to support SB.
I did tell him that. I actually sent the 2 spreadsheets that we had,
Right.
and I made notes on them of what I understood, and said that we were, saying that you should be voting no on these. And he said he really didn't think. He said he thought that was a lot of it was hype, and it really wasn't going to impact like we think. And I don't know. I just, you know, I've known him for quite a few years. I don't think he has a reason to tell me otherwise. So I don't really know. That's why I said I just wanted to kind of touch on it, that I was thinking about it, and I did talk to him about it.
Not what I
I guess-
saw on it, it looked like it would impact us negatively.
I sent him the spreadsheets. I said, well, what I'm looking at, if what I'm looking at is correct, like a district like North Penn gets what we're not going to get.
Yeah,
So,
depending on how
for
the
people-
calculations were done had a negative impact. So I don't know what we're missing that he sees, but I'd be happy as long as it doesn't have a negative impact.
Me too. Me too. So I just wanted to mention that. And Peg, I know, you know, as legislative liaison, I know you're watching this stuff. So if you get anything new on it that you want to share along in July, because we love July, that would be great. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Well, as I'm hearing thunder behind me,
Right.
yeah, it's sunny. I see that. No, it's raining and it's thundering here. So anyway, go figure. All right. Well,
I got the same, and Mrs. McGinnis is like in the bright, sunny.
I know. I'm like, you better go
I've got the
in.
thunder. Yeah. As soon as Dana started talking a few minutes ago, it started thundering.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know if that's an indication of what we should do or, but if you're
I
looking
don't
for a
know.
motion,
Okay. So if there's nothing else, no new business, I would call for a motion to
make a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
And I will second that motion because
Thank
although it looks sunny, there are definitely some tiny raindrops falling. So I need to go in.
Well, we don't want to electrocute you. We need you. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Everybody. I guess
Thank you,
we'll see you
Sandy.
Thursday.
See you
See you
on
Thursday.
Thursday.
Yep.